Good afternoon. First of all, on a lighter note, I would like to inform the Director on Manifesto implementation that I am a full cabinet minister, so it is okay to call me an honorable minister. Yeah, so it is perfectly fine. You know, people always forget, I see them struggling, Attorney General, Minister, it's okay. Yeah, but we are here this afternoon to present the implementation status of the NRM Manifesto for and on behalf of the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs and its allied institutions responsible for the development, responsible for strengthening the role of the state in guiding and facilitating the development. And these institutions are the Electoral Commission, the Uganda Law Reform Commission, the Uganda Human Rights Commission, Law Development Center, Uganda Registration Services Bureau, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, and Judicial Service Commission. For avoidance of doubt, we do not supervise the judiciary, we support the judiciary. Judiciary is an independent arm of government, so whatever the judiciary reports, we only support them as a Minister of Justice when it comes to handling their policy issues through Cabinet and Parliament. But we do not supervise, and the judiciary is not an allied institution of the Ministry of Justice. The ministry and the above institutions promote access to justice for all and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Peace, stability, human rights, and effective governance based on the rule of law are all prerequisites for sustainable development. The key commitments in the NRM Government Manifesto for the period 2021-2026 that are spearheaded by the ministry are: 1. Compensation of the war-affected households in Teso, Lango, Acholi for the lost cattle. Implementation of the National Transitional Justice Policy that provides the framework for complete rehabilitation and reconciliation of post-conflict communities, creating greater peace and stability. And this we are handling together with the Ministry of Internal Affairs. And then the rollout of the computerized prosecution case management system, PROCAMIS, to an additional 20 stations, fighting corruption by strengthening the investigative and prosecution machinery so that corruption cases are thoroughly probed, tried, and put before courts for adjudication. These are the four main areas for Manifesto on top of our already existing constitutional duties of providing advice to government and preparing the necessary contractual documents. Honorable members here, colleagues, permanent secretaries and director, you will allow me, after I make these remarks, to request the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Justice to make the presentation on behalf of the Ministry of Justice on the progress and challenges of the implementing of the aforesaid commitments for the last 3 years. I will request to be excused from this meeting because I have a pre-scheduled meeting which is supposed to start in about half an hour, and I dare not be late. But the technical team handling these matters is available to answer any questions that may be required to be answered. But however, before I take leave, it would be remiss of me not to make a comment on my observation in as far as this manifesto presentations are concerned. The manifesto of the NRM government for this period 2021-2026 is the government's plan. It is what the government promised the people of Uganda for the last 5 years. When these presentations are being made by the different ministries and only the ministries are present to listen themselves, it does not serve any useful purpose in my view. Government needs to start working as a whole government, as a complete engine. I would like to hear what our ministry did that affected the work of another ministry, and how we can make that better for them to be able to deliver on their manifesto. So I hope that next year we will not be sitting in a room talking to ourselves, because as you are sure you know, with our allied institutions we are constantly engaging and we actually know what we have done. So the only people who can actually figure out whether we have achieved anything are the people whom are sitting in the other ministry. So I hope that this method of work will change. This is a very, very important part of the government's implementation, because this is our Bible. And therefore, when we go back to the population to ask them for another mandate, they will be asking us whether we've been able to achieve what we promised. And it will not matter whether one ministry was successful or another ministry, we all must be successful. So as a close, I wish to add that from where I stand and from my viewpoint, from the Ministry of Justice and the way we view things, the future of the country, the future of Uganda, from our viewpoint under the NRM government, is secure. I thank you all for listening to me. I say all this for God and my country.
Who has the pointer? Okay. Just wanted to know who is controlling the PowerPoint. Can I do that myself, or you are able to move? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robert Kasande, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Good afternoon, and very welcome to this presentation. We've been waiting for some time. We thought it would be in the morning, but nonetheless, as you heard from the Honorable Attorney General, this is a presentation that I'm making on behalf of our 7 allied institutions and the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. It's important that we put into perspective what we're going to present and what is our vision as a ministry. What is our mission? What is our mandate? The vision of the ministry is to have a nation that upholds the rule of law. That is very critical for us. Good governance and the process and due process for all. Our mission is to promote effective and efficient machinery capable of providing a legal framework for good governance and delivery of legal advice and services to government and its allied institutions and to the general public. And our mandate is to provide legal advice and legal services, as well as supporting the machinery that provides the legal framework for good governance. Our objectives, if you can move to next, is to strengthen the policy, legal, and regulatory and institutional frameworks that, again, ensure that we have good governance. Enhance access to the ministry services, strengthen the ministry's business processes to facilitate private sector development, promote constitutionalism and compliance with the Uganda Bill of Rights, strengthen transparency and accountability, and also to strengthen institutional capacity of the ministry to effectively and efficiently execute our mandate. I will not repeat the number of institutions that are allied to us. The Honorable Attorney General did that very well. I will move on straight to what commitments the ministry and us and the allied institutions made for the manifesto between 2021 and 2026. So this presentation highlights our commitments under the Justice, Law and Order, Public Sector Management, and fight against corruption, as well as affirmative action as ways of improving access to justice. These commitments include compensation of war-affected households in Teso Lango, Acholi, implementation of the National Transitional Justice Policy that provides the framework for complete rehabilitation and reconciliation of post-conflict communities, creating greater peace and stability. This is mostly undertaken by Uganda Law Reform Commission and Law Development Center. Rollout of the computerized prosecution case management system, commonly known as PROCAMIS, that needed to be rolled out in many other stations. Fighting corruption by strengthening the investigative and prosecution machinery so that corruption cases are thoroughly probed, tried, and put before court for adjudication. Our first commitment that we look at is under the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs that looks at compensation of war debt claimants in the Acholi, Lango, and Teso sub-regions. This is an activity that was launched by His Excellency the President in April of 2022, and we have made some strides, albeit some challenges regarding the funding that has been coming through. Needless to say, we have so far compensated 24,777 claimants in that region. A total of 121.3 billion shillings has been spent in this on this activity, broken down to just under 4,000 in the Acholi sub-region, with an amount of 33.2 billion. 10,684 claimants in the Lango sub-region, an amount of 39.24 billion, and 10,100 claimants in the Teso sub-region, an amount of 48.75 billion. Continuing with this commitment, the expected outcome, because as we do this, we need to monitor how is it improving the lives of Ugandans. We see improved local economic development by restricting the awarded claimants and beneficiaries to a position that is close to where they were before they lost their cattle. Reduce government liability, because many of these areas have had suits in courts of law. So by commencing this activity, we want to manage the liability of government. Needless to say, we expect that the lives of the people in these areas will improve to boost agriculture and general productivity of our populations. Like I said earlier, we've had a challenge of the money that is coming in. Since 2022, when we launched in April, we have only had 121 billion released, and yet the data that we have received up to date has come to about 473 billion. So we are working very hard with the Ministry of Finance to ensure that these resources are availed. In addition to budget allocation constraints, the exercise has not been smooth because of the data that we receive. Some claimants delay to give us the right documentation. As you know, this loss happened way back in the 80s, 86 to 87. So some of the claimants have died and they have their descendants. Bringing in the right documents from court takes some time. We have payments bouncing because inaccuracies of bank accounts. We have also seen continuous requests. The ministry did a verification exercise way back in 2016. So we thought that was it because we did an estimate of about 92,000 claimants, but we have seen continuous requests to be included in the database. And the guidance we've had from His Excellency the President that as long as their documentation is genuine, we can compensate even those people who didn't go to court. The people going to court can be compensated, and even those that didn't go to court. So it takes time. The way we've done it is we have devolved the validation, verification to the district structures, the CAO, the DISO, and their ISOs, district veterinary officers, office of the RDC, to populate these databases that we have availed them and submit to the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. I'll now allow me to move on to the Manifesto thematic area 2, which is ensuring justice and equity for all. In doing this, we need to bring the services that we offer as a jealous fraternity closer to the people. So one of the things that we are doing currently in this period is to put up what we call the jealous house. This is a house that will be a home to many of the jealous institutions. Needless to say, the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Uganda Prison Services, Judicial Service Commission, Uganda Human Rights Commission, Uganda Law Reform Commission, which is apparently becoming part and parcel of the ministry, Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, and the Tax Appeals Tribunal. This will obviously speak to this thematic area because the whole ecosystem of the justice system will be in one house. We are putting this up in Naburu, next to the police headquarters. Currently, we have progressed quite well. We have done this in phases. Phase 1, which will host many of these institutions that I've just mentioned, is 75% complete. We have embarked on phase 2, which will be the headquarters of Uganda Police. Currently, what we call the Uganda Police headquarters is meant for CID alone. But the second phase that we are doing will be housing the entire Uganda Police Force. We are seeing this as a very good outcome once complete, because currently these institutions that I've mentioned are spending a whopping 30 billion shillings per year on rent. And we think that when this is completed, we will be able to save that amount of money. There was a picture there for the jealous house. Under the same thematic area, ensuring justice and equity for all, the ministry under the Directorate of Civil Litigation in this period has handled over 16,420 cases in courts and tribunals and commissions. A total of 1,171 cases were concluded, 1,171 cases concluded in that period. But interesting to note, and I want the Fourth Estate to note this very carefully, that 899 cases were won in this period, which saved government a whopping 3.6 trillion shillings. In other words, what I'm saying is that had we lost these cases, we would have had to pay the litigants this amount of money. But because our lawyers were able to win these cases, that amount was saved. However, in the same period, we lost 272 cases, and this resulted into a payout or a liability of 655 billion. The ministry also reviewed and cleared contracts. As the Honorable Attorney General told you, we review contracts of government to facilitate whatever is done in the ministries and departments and agencies. In fact, you could see his frustration that we seem to be speaking to ourselves. If these people who we facilitate were here, they would be able to give us feedback if indeed we're doing this the right way in the right time that is required. These contracts, needless to say, include construction, road construction, schools, dams, purchases of essential medicines. So we have set out lately to ensure that these responses, when they ask for opinions, when they ask for contracts to be approved, we do this in a very timely manner in 14 days. Within 14 days, if all information has been provided, we ensure that this is provided. The response is given. Next, a few challenges that we have met in doing what we have done for the compensations and also representing government in courts of law. We have inadequate human resource. We only have 7 regional offices, and yet we have to support the entire country. Therefore, we will be needing a lot more resource to ensure that we have developed more regional offices. This has been made to us by the speed with which the judiciary is opening court circuits in the whole country. Therefore, we really need to see that ourselves have a budget that is sufficient. And we're looking at about 130 billion to do more regional offices, about 12 billion to recruit more attorneys to be able to represent us in courts of law. Thematic area, ensuring justice and equity. The work that has been done under this by the Uganda Human Rights Commission, in particular looking at the Uganda Bill of Rights. We applaud the Uganda Human Rights for maintaining an A status ranking from the Global Alliance for National Human Rights Institutions. The Global Alliance for National Human Rights Institutions goes and looks at what national institutions do, and we have, over the years in this period, we have maintained an A status ranking, and that's very key. The Human Rights Commission, Uganda Human Rights Commission, has also investigated 3,086 complaints, of which 47% were investigated to conclusion, and 53% were partially investigated. We believe that by the time we end this reporting period in 2026, this percentage will have gotten close to 100%. Additionally, Uganda Human Rights Commission mediated 276 complaints, which mostly involved denial of child maintenance. Of the 276 complaints mediated by Uganda Human Rights Commission, 86%, that's 235 out of the 276, were successfully mediated. The Uganda Human Rights Commission also provided redress to 512 victims of human rights violations through successful mediations and tribunal hearings. Continuing with the Uganda Human Rights Commission, there has been an application of the human rights-based approach in service delivery by duty bearers, and also this was done across all ministries, departments, and agencies, and local governments. The Human Rights Commission conducted tribunal hearing sessions in all its regional offices. A total of 252 matters were disposed. There was a translation and printing and dissemination of Chapter 4 Uganda Bill of Rights into 38 languages. And of course, needless to say, this eased accessibility to Ugandans. Uganda Human Rights also developed and launched a human rights education app that ensures availability of information for the promotion and protection of human rights. The Commission produced and disseminated 4 annual State of Human Rights reports. These included the 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th annual reports of the state of human rights and freedoms in Uganda. This has been achieved in this period of reporting. Under the same thematic area, the Uganda Law Reform Commission was able to review and reform a number of laws. Among them, the Commission undertook to reform the following laws to ensure the rule of law and stability of the economy. This was legislation on externalization of labor, reviewing of the Weights and Measures Act, Chapter 984, review of the Corporate and Neighboring Rights Act, review of the Explosives Act, review of the Industrial Licensing Act, review of the Animal Prevention of Cruelty Act, review of laws governing trusts in Uganda, and review of procedures for enforcement of court orders in civil proceedings. The Uganda Human Rights Commission was also able to revise laws to promote access to updated laws for the rule of law and justice to flourish. In this activity, they were able to prepare and publish the 7th revised edition of the Principal Laws of Uganda that is available now on the website, was launched earlier this year. Prepared the cumulative supplement of the laws of Uganda as of December 2023. Prepared and published the annual update of the index of the laws of Uganda since 2021, and prepared a draft revised edition of the blue volumes containing subsidiary laws. The Law Reform Commission was able to do a translation of a number of laws. The 1995 Constitution was translated into 56 Ugandan languages. That helps a lot in the communities that not necessarily speak English. The Local Council Courts Act into 23 Ugandan languages, and the Domestic Violence Act, Cap 18, into 6 Ugandan languages. The Uganda Human Rights Commission also undertook simplification of laws. This ensures justice and equity requires better understanding of the law by the population. In order to facilitate easy understanding and administration of the law, the Commission has simplified the following laws. Prepared and disseminated the Succession Act, User Guide of 2023. Prepared user guides to the Traffic and Road Safety Act. Simplified the Domestic Violence Act, Cap 123. Prepared a user guide to the Computer Misuse Act and a user guide to the Employment Act. We now move on to the next thematic area, which is physical education, sports, and talent developed. You may ask yourself, what has this got to do with the justice, law, and order sector? But the Uganda Human Rights Bureau, under its Intellectual Property Directorate, under the Innovation, Technology Development and Transfer Program, the URSB focused on enhancing the intellectual property value chain by developing institutional and human resource capacities to effectively implement the National Intellectual Property of 2019. The URSB also has operationalized 9 intellectual property laws and domesticated 7 treaties to support the implementation of the intellectual property policy, which has contributed to the achievement of the following: effective enforcement, regulation of collective management organizations, fast geographic indications, establishment of 34 technological and innovation support centers. In doing this, they have had to collect an amount of 269 billion shillings, which is a greater improvement from what they used to collect about 10 years ago. Under thematic area development of the sector-wide integration for information sharing, the Uganda Judicial Services Bureau was able to automate a case management system in jail's frontline institutions, including the judiciary, the URSB, the Ministry of Justice, the Electoral of Citizenship and Immigration Control, National Identification and Registration Authority, NIRA, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, and the Uganda Police Force. This is one of the key commitments that the jail's institutions had to ensure that, and especially we found it very useful during the period of COVID, that we were able to start some of these interventions, even court appearances online, and this has continued to grow. This activity includes mapping of business processes relating to the sharing and exchange of criminal records between the police, the DPP, the judiciary, and prisons. with linkage to the National Register and databases operated mainly by the Uganda National Identification and Registration Authority, NIRA, and the URSB itself. In making these achievements, there have been some challenges that have been faced by the Uganda Registration Services Bureau. This is what they have termed bureaucratic legal reforms. There is need to fast-track the formulation of law on traditional knowledge protection to regulate traditional knowledge and folklore. I'm aware that this has been submitted for review, and we're committing that it will be fast-tracked. Low level of integration of registration systems with other national institutions like the IRAS, Integrated Revenue Administration System, Immigration, etc., which limits seamless registration processes. But I believe that all these institutions like the URA, the NIRA, should be able to work together going forward with URSB to ensure that this automation is seamless. The next commitment was implementation of the National Transitional Justice Policy. Here we've had the Law Development Center provide legal advice, legal aid services and outreaches geared toward legal awareness at police stations, prisons, schools, and within the communities through alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. Also, we've had contribution to this by Uganda Law Reform Commission, which has developed a manual for traditional leaders on transitional justice and guidelines for implementing the informal justice system. The guidelines are intended to define the informal justice framework, create linkages between the informal and the formal justice systems, define structures for coordination and clarification on referral and appeals processes. There was a key commitment of rolling out the computerized prosecution case management system, the PROCAMIS, to an additional 20 stations. And here, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions took lead, and already the PROCAMIS has been rolled out to 25 stations, including Soroti, Hoima, Ntungamo, Sorot, Kasese, Mbale, Masindi, Mitiana, Nebi, Moyo, Arua, Jumani, Chitugum, Koboko, Moroto, Kumi, Yenjojo, Fort Poto, Rubirizi, Bushenyi, Ibanda, Wakiso, Tororo, and Busia. So the state attorneys in these areas are able to get online and transact the business of the DPP together with the judiciary. There was a commitment that together, collectively, we're working to reduce corruption by strengthening the investigative and prosecution machinery. Again, here, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions was able to implement investigative and prosecution machinery, and this has contributed in the fight against corruption in the following ways. They have prosecuted 774 corruption and corruption-related cases and concluded 260 cases at an average conviction rate of 85%. In doing this, they have been able to recover a total of 13.25 billion shillings from the cases of corruption that they have prosecuted. They have also raided the public service of 77 public servants convicted of corruption and barred from holding public office for 10 years. And strengthening the juvenile justice system, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions has been involved in cases that involve children who are in contact with the law, and children in conflict with the law. Those who are in contact, if their parents are under prosecution, those are in contact with the law, but also those who are juveniles who are in conflict with the law have been prosecuted. In doing this, child-friendly spaces have been established in 14 regional offices that you can see there on the screen. Among them, Kampala, Lira, Gulu, Soroti, Mbali, Jinja, Mukono, Masaka, Mbarara, Kabale, Bushenyi, Fort Portal, and Hoima. These spaces, ladies and gentlemen, have amenities for children and are used to accommodate and prepare child victims and witnesses for court. We have found this very useful in areas where I have been, where I've seen they are very helpful to the clients of court. Resource materials have also been developed for reference by stakeholders when handling child-related cases. These include a handbook on prosecuting child-related cases, prosecutor plea bargain guidelines, and gender-based violence training manuals. I know, Director, we started quite late, so we don't have too much time, but we are coming close to the end of this presentation. Under the thematic area democracy, there was need to consolidate electoral reforms through voting separately and ensuring voter verification using biometric systems. Here, the Electoral Commission has currently conducted 9 elections since 2021, general elections. And it has also undertaken verification of voters using biometric voter verification kits at every polling station where they have undertaken these 9 voting sessions. Free and fair elections are conducted regularly at all the elective positions of presidential, parliamentary, and local government council levels. Under deepening democracy, through regularly elected councils at district and sub-county levels, the Electoral Commission has been able to conduct the parliamentary and district chairperson by-elections. A very recent one was in Kisoro. As soon as the vacancies occurred following the timelines specified in the Constitution, that is 6 months for district local government and 60 days in the case of parliamentary vacancies. The Commission has been able to fill the existing local council vacancies in areas where the parliamentary and district chairpersons by elections have happened. 762 local government council and administrative units, that is LC1 and 2, and women council and committees positions. These have remained unfilled, and I'm sure that we've been updating you through cabinet. Because of limited funding, we have not been able to undertake these. So the Electoral Commission has had some challenges. Inadequate bioelectric voter verification system kits, which are also affected by poor network in some regions. Up-to-date registration of all citizens who will be voting age by NIRA within the country and out of the country to ensure all are registered on the national register. That has not been able to happen. And what I talked about, the inability to hold LC1 and 2 council elections and women council and committee positions across the country. Director and members, in conclusion, the justice, law and order sector is making strides, but in our opinion, we need a holistic approach to achieve access to justice for all. What we have seen is, much as we are happy for the judiciary to be increasing its presence countrywide, the same needs to be replicated in all institutions that relate to the access to justice. Here we're talking about the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, the state attorneys that we have, I've already talked about them, Office of the DPP, the police themselves, especially the ones who do investigations. Chair, I thank you for this opportunity.
Please once again join me to thank the Minister and the PS for this presentation. Like we had observed yesterday when we had judiciary here, the constitutionality and justice issues are very, very central in the drive to achieve socio-economic transformation. The absence of justice can really be a cause of instability, and that cannot move us better on a journey for prosperity to our people. Honorable Minister and the team, I want to take note of the observations raised by the Minister here. First of all, I wish to register my oversight on the issues of Honorable Minister and AJ. I know he's a member of Cabinet, but I also know there are many people who may be given opportunity to attend Cabinet as ex-officials, who may not necessarily be ministers, but that is, I take note of that. Secondly, I want to welcome his proposal on the methodology. That is something that can be discussed going forward. But the whole essence of this program is not government talking to government, but it is government now sending a message to the citizens to appreciate the level where we are in terms of this journey. Otherwise, I know that within the workings of government, there are always those forums where intergovernment meetings take place, and we share. There would be challenges or appreciate how our work affects the other parties. But it's an area we can explore and see going forward. But the critical concern of the program and these activities is to make sure that our citizens are able to appreciate how far we are moving on this journey of the manifesto and what we have been able to deliver. We have these observations. We want to appreciate the different investment and interventions that have been made on the agreed commitments within the manifesto. We identify, because through our monitoring we are able to appreciate some of these progress or some of the achievements you have mentioned here. However, the issue of compensation is still a touchy issue, and the affected regions still have this concern that maybe government is slow as far as the compensation process is being handled. Maybe the ministry can advise more means on how to simplify further or how to go further to validate first and make sure all those who are due are compensated in time. And I think it is also important to establish who are the targeted number of beneficiaries, claimants, so that it doesn't continue to be an endless process, which I think later results into some unnecessary political demands. So, going by the President's guidance, I think the Ministry can now look into that and see how best we can have a targeted number, and then equally the budget can be worked out to meet that. The other observation is that we still have a challenge on the acquisition of land for these major projects. And in this country, land is a constitutional issue. Land belongs to the people. I don't know how you can work with the constitutionality of it to make sure that the acquisition of land is simplified to allow development take place, especially these big projects that require rights of way. This has been a very, very touchy issue, and for us, most of the commitments and most of the promises that are made to our people for transformation are quite heavy, and they require land. But the compensation process, the legality around it is not easy, and this impacts on the delivery times. And also another area that needs to be looked into, since you are dealing with road reforms, is the area of procurement, especially on these bigger projects, so that you don't almost run into half the term when you are still in the procurement of the project that needs to be, or of which was promised to make a change in the lives of people in the course of the term. The other issue here is what you have observed, that the presence in 7 regions is still small. Maybe you need to see how to push this to expand your presence. Now that the judiciary has moved in terms of recruiting more staff, putting up more offices, then we do not want to see justice to be delayed, because justice delayed is justice denied. So that means we must also move in a corresponding way to match the investments that are done the other side. It is also in line with what you have raised. The whole players along the justice delivery chain need to be addressed, so that the country, the access to justice, which is one of our key thematic areas, is realized to its fullest. You have also touched about the issue of the Electoral Commission. The biometric is something we pledged. I don't know how we stand in terms of efficiency in this area, so that if the election tomorrow is declared to go biometric, we are able to deliver a free and fair election using a biometric system, updated registers. But I think another area which probably we didn't touch on is about civic education, since Electoral Commission is responsible for this. I think we also need to draw a strong program on this civic education for our citizens to appreciate the dynamics of what it takes or about their rights as citizens in an electoral process. Otherwise, with those observations from the Manifesto unit, I want to invite our partners here, the media, to raise some issues that relate to this area. I thank you. Any issues? If there are no issues, I want to thank you because we have no time. We are moving into another session around 2:30, so I want to be timely. Was the area so complicated that you didn't understand, or everything was properly explained and therefore we call it a day? Okay.
I appreciate you, Chair. I appreciate the PS for the very wonderful presentation. However, my concern is on compensation of war-affected households in Teso, actually Lango, West Nile, for their livestock. I advise that we should create a very clear communication channel on this, because back to my people of Lamu, you see that there is a bit of miscommunication to the people, to the affected people. You find that at a particular time, people are going to banks to open accounts, and I think that is the reason for the disorganization, maybe in terms of verification of their bank accounts, because at the specific time when you need their details, the bank has already, ruled them out because they don't have money anyway in the bank accounts. Thank you. My name is Aweri Timothy Okodi from the Office of the Prime Minister. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Allow me to invite you, PS, to either note or make a further clarification on this matter, and then we conclude. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman from the Office of the Prime Minister. Yes, I take note the need to improve on sensitization, if you will, of these stakeholders. We work very strongly with the CAOs in those districts to ensure that this information is given periodically from our ministry to the districts through the CAOs. But also what we have done, and for purposes of real transparency in the activity that we're undertaking, is that every individual who has been paid is found on our website. Seated right there, you can go to on your phone and go get into the website of the Ministry of Justice, and you will see every one single person who have that amount of money, 121 billion, who it has gone to. Thank you very much.
Members, this marks the end of this session. Minister, PS, thank you so much for your time and your team. We shall now declare this session officially closed. I request you to rise up for the national anthems in reverse order, and then a photo opportunity after here. Thank you. But once again, we shall be assembling here at 2:30. We begin with the Minister of Lands, who will be the next presenter. Thank you very much.